If he shows up, he's ready. He may say, I don't want friends. Well, why? Because he always failed, and that may be his, his strategy to protect himself. So it's hard to say, We meet people just where they are, and we'll just try one step at a time.
I think there's a really important point to make. I think what we see a lot is that if the parents are recommending it, especially with our adolescent population and young adult population, they want everything opposite of what their parents are recommending. So whatever the parents say, they want the opposite. And so we have that going against us, I think, right from the get-go, right, when we're trying to get the buy-in from the students and the clients to work with us. But meeting them where they are, I think, is incredibly important, and that can look very different from person to person. But also, it makes me think of that concept of learned helplessness, that so many times I think we're working with individuals that just don't think they can be successful, so why am I going to bother to try? So sometimes we get that resistance and that rigidity against coaching, because why am I going to put effort into something that I think I'm going to be unsuccessful with anyway? So that's just something to kind of some food for thought and things to think about when you're thinking about hiring a coach, and maybe your client or your son or your daughter or whomever it is giving you resistance. And yeah, taking that type of well, just come and learn more about it, and trying to get at least try this, see if it's effective, see if it's helpful for you is a lot of times, we're the piece that we can hold on to. My second part of this,
Samantha, you're making a good point in terms of parents. And again, I just want to bring up again our wonderful organization, because I think that if we find ourselves in that situation, that parents are still, often are not on the same page with young adults or adults, and they have their goals. And, to be fair, those are always good goals. They are just not their adult kids' goals.
Yeah.
And so we are very lucky because we can refer them to adult services, or we have a lot of educational programs, or just make a phone call. Maybe they will give you some ideas. We have a webinar online, Let It Go or Holding On, So we are really lucky that coaches don't have to do it all. We sort of tap into other programs. And I think that's, for us, at least in our experience, is the key. We don't have to do it all. Our organization has, different programs to address those, but those are real challenges.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see sometimes what the goals of the parents are versus what the goals are of the clients themselves. It's just, it's very interesting. And it's important to get information on both of those things, Okay, great. So the next question I have with regards to benefits to coaching are, what are the specific outcomes you guys are seeing, and can you share any anecdotal stories about some progress that you saw through using a coaching model that you were like, wow, this is this makes me proud to be in this field? I'm sure you have a ton of them, but is anything highlighted?
Okay, stories. I mean, we have 1,600 stories and even more untold at A&E, that we have so many people. And I wrote so many notes, like what stories I want to bring up. But, the stories are similar, but also very, very unique. And this gentleman that is not on my list, but comes to my mind, he was dropped by his parents from California at Berkeley School of Music in the Boston area. And the kid was just amazing with all these talents. But, he did have some executive function difficulties, anxiety, and other things that may come together with Asperger diagnosis. And because he lived at home and the family provided that structure, they didn't realize really, and the parents were amazing and wonderful, they didn't realize how much that actually is important for that young, bright man. So they dropped him, they say, okay, you go, theater is the school, whatever. And so he was at a very, very bad place where we met him. So it was not 5 hours a month of coaching. It was 11 hours a week of coaching with this young man. It did progress really quickly. I mean, we would bring him to the classroom. We come with him close to his college. He would not even go to the classroom. So the other day, the coach would actually walk with him and he would leave. The anxiety was just amazing. He didn't know what to do with himself at home, couldn't get his routine going, nothing. So we did a lot of work, very basic. Somebody was saying about just creating routines, creating, those, when do you do laundry? When do you do homework? What do you do with this? How do you answer that? How do you find a personal space, time, place to do studies? All these practical things. And then fast forward, 4 years later, he did leave. Actually, he stayed in college for 5.5 years to finish his degree. And he did leave this Boston area with also having he was, has his little band going on, and he had a part-time job, and he lived with a girlfriend, which we were so happy because then the coach had let to do. So it was like really amazing story because they were just good match, and so the California mother got 2 kids instead of 1. So I don't know, this is just came, he was not on my list, but this is just came to me that sometimes we meet them at so low places, and it's like, what do we know? Will they always need support? We don't know. Maybe that girlfriend is the key. I don't know. Maybe that job is the key. Maybe living 4 blocks from the mother is the key. I don't know. Maybe combination of all those things.
I think my story would really be the impact on the families. It's not an individual story. It's just the big picture story. But one of the families that I was referencing earlier, who were in their late 80s, they started the process of trying to find a coach and getting them connected and doing a life quality plan. And her husband passed away when they were in the middle of doing it. And his mom came to me and said, I don't know how I could have handled this if we hadn't already gotten sort of an extension of the family, somebody in there to support me as well as supporting my son. So I think when you're able to kind of hit that niche, right, when you're able to look up, whether it's with the folks you work with or the ones I work with, and fill in that missing piece that's keeping people from having a quality life, I think it benefits everyone. I think.
Yeah, that quality of life, right? Happiness, quality of life, independence is so important. The story I think of is very similar to yours. And, we had a young man that, his whole dream was to come to New York City to go to college. He was from out of state. And without coaching supports, that would have been really difficult for him to be successful here. And through the years, we watched him go from needing a lot of support and living in the residence halls to living independently in an apartment, to getting engaged and getting married. And, it's been a nice thing to be able to watch. Young adulthood is a very exciting time, especially when you're able to experience, life, a quality of life as best as you can. And so, it's important to support the families as a unit for sure, because that quality of life is important, not just for the individuals we're working with, but also their families as well. So if we want to move on to the topic of training coaches, question for you guys, do you think the field of coaching should be regulated? And if so, and we kind of started to touch on this when you were presenting, if you think it should be regulated, what do you think the next steps are to actually get to that point?
I think it should be regulated. I'm a big fan of that.